When this morning's guest ran for public office in 1994, she said she'd work hard, play fair, and stay honest. She's done just that. Meet her, coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Waccamaw Community Foundation at 3655 South Kings Highway in Murrells Inlet, South Carolina. We're focused on Horry County Council, and we're visiting with its chairman, or really the people of Horry County, and so many other things. Liz Gilland. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning, Greg.
Thank you so much. You know, Sherry, our producer, had laid out a title there in the Herald of focusing on the people of Horry County, and obviously you are focused day in and day out. I'm sorry we're in Georgetown County at this moment filming, but the Waccamaw Community Foundation has a deep tie to both Horry and Georgetown County.
And what an asset for
both
counties.
That it is, very definitely. A great location here, and Sam and Cindy Scalise were instrumental in opening the door to make this location happen. I think you said the old sea captains.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Murrells Inlet Sea Captains.
That's right, the Murrells Inlet Sea Captains, very definitely. Thank you so much for coming in. Have you finished all your shopping? A week from today is the big day.
No, I never do, right until,
Yeah.
I'm one of those that may just run out Christmas Eve. And in fact, several years ago, I did that when the old Brindle store was here, locked my keys in my car on Christmas Eve.
No.
Not an ideal situation.
Oh, yeah, that old Brindle's out near the Waccamaw Bowling now. Yeah,
yep. I was picking up a few last minutes. So
is that right?
I'll try not to do that again. I learned my lesson.
Yes, you've made that trip quite a few times from Conway to the beach and back.
Oh, I have done it in this job up to 3 times a day.
Oh, come on.
I have. There have been times when I've had a morning meeting, a middle of the day meeting, and an evening something, and that's a lot of back and forth on 501.
You probably know a couple of shortcuts then. Have you thought to let anyone know about them, or they wouldn't be shortcuts if you told anyone?
I use 544 and then take 31, and even though it's more miles, at least I can keep moving.
Right.
And I'd rather be driving than be sitting in traffic. So
yeah.
I try to not add to the problem on 501.
It wasn't long ago that 544, you would not have been taking it. It just wouldn't have had that ability to get down to Surfside or that area.
There are other people who have other favorites from the Ride 1 plan, Grissom or 22 or 31, but my favorite is 544 because I have used that since I was in high school, because we've had a beach house in Garden City since I was 17.
Oh, yeah.
And so much... I'm back and forth so much, but that's my route of choice now.
Do you still have that home in Garden City?
Do, and have not spent the night there in 2.5 years,
unfortunately.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, I've been caring for my mom, and she's in a nursing home now, and I'm out there almost every night at bedtime for her. And I'm just so busy that I just know that it's there, and one of these days I'll get to enjoy it again.
Right, yes, yes.
But it's always been a little sanctuary in the midst of the political stuff.
Yeah, Liz, do you have brothers and sisters here in the area?
I have a sister married to an orthopedic surgeon in Georgetown, Jane Skinner, and I have a brother, but he's in heaven. And he was killed in an automobile accident back when he was right before turning 21. But I don't leave him out because I can just see him going, well, what about me?
Right. Yes,
so
yes.
I did that once right after he was killed, and I thought, I'm not ever going to do that again. So miss my brother. We'll see him again one day.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And your parents, obviously, you said your mother's still living in a rest home. Is your father?
She's 93. My father passed away a few years ago at 88. He was he was a surgeon back when they did general surgery, not 1,000 different specialized surgeries, surgical preferences and choices. But he and Dr. Ed Proctor were the only 2 surgeons in the entire county for a number of years, and there was only one hospital, and it was in Conway. So I still have an old map that I found in his office that was framed, and I thought, why would he have an Horry County map? But it shows, it's an old DOT map from the 60s, and shows every little dot, every little square is a home, every little church sign is a sign for every church on all the roads in Horry County. So it's fascinating historically.
Wow. Yeah.
But that's what he used when he did house calls.
That is fascinating.
And he has an old
leather. Take a look at that sometime. Yeah.
He has an old leather doctor's bag, that when the Horry County Museum gets its new museum, I hope to contribute that as just a slice of life back when doctors used to make house calls.
I love just that idea of a map that would have all the houses at any time. Of course, today you just couldn't do anything like that and be able to look at it. But
it wasn't in the cities, but it was. I mean, you can see 544, the old 544 in the 60s, where every little crook and turn was, and all the houses and all the churches.
And he traveled to a lot of homes.
Oh, he was almost always gone at night, it seems, and on weekends. He'd get a phone call and we'd know, Pop's gone. So.
Did he ever carry you or your brother or sister out with him? Or
no, he
your
didn't.
Mom?
Mom was a stay-at-home mom,
right?
And she was there, and we stayed, and he went, and that was just the way it always was.
Mm-hmm.
But it was rare that we had an entire supper together at night, because the phone would ring and he'd have to run.
Liz.
Or he'd be operating first in the morning, and I remember seeing him chug he put a raw egg, like one of those old Steve McQueen or something in the movies thing, raw egg in a shot glass sort of thing, a little small glass with a few salt, chug, and that was his breakfast, and he was out the door.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah.
You can picture that.
I can. He did that time after time. Yeah.
Wow, Liz.
Yeah. But he loved being a doctor, and I'll show my age by saying he was the old Marcus Welby type. If you remember that kind, soft-spoken, slow-talking, would explain everything to the patient.
Right.
Would
Good
be
for
just
him.
just gentle, and he loved to teach as he did what he was doing, and he was he was just a great doctor and a great dad.
And as one of only two then at the time, then there was, of course, you hear so oftentimes now for doctors who have children of their own, they're never involved in helping to care for their own children. They want to let other doctors do it. We had a guest on recently, and of course, hearing him talk about he would never, as an obstetrician himself, never perform clearly on his own kids. But for y'all, where there were only two doctors, I guess there were times where he'd have to care for y'all as well.
Well, actually, we grew up fairly healthy, and other than my tonsils, I never had to see a surgeon growing up, and I don't think Jane or John did either.
Is that right?
So we were, we didn't have, no appendicitis or any of that, so we were fortunate. But Conway was the most incredibly wonderful place to grow up. Yeah. And I really did have a foot on both sides of the waterway, because we would move. That was when Myrtle Beach was tiny.
Right.
And there were little Conway enclaves. Folks would build a little cottage and move over for the summer. This was in our neighborhood, a little Conway enclave around 22nd Avenue South on the ocean. And it's back when we first built it, and I don't remember this, but it was a dirt road. But then they paved it, and it was 2 lanes. And then I think it was still 2 when we sold it when I was in the 9th grade. But we had a little Conway area, and we would move over the first week in May.
Right.
And those of us kids would pile in a car with whichever daddy was going to work first or operating first or whatever, and then one of the moms would come pick us up. And we would move back home the end of September. So I was 5 months, 7 months, Myrtle Beach and Conway, growing up. So I've got there's long been the divide, it seems. But I never understood it, because I kind of had the waterway, and I never understood it because I had a real love for both, having experienced both in such a wonderful way. But Conway was just the most idyllic, safe, wonderful, small southern town to grow up in. Where you felt free, and you were free, and you could be a kid, and it wasn't a scary time.
Right.
And I could ride my bike all over town, and we could play out.
Is Conway still that way?
Very much so.
Actually.
It is. I'm not sure anything is quite as wonderful as it was, and those were the halcyon days. So maybe in reality it wasn't quite as good as memories. But the world's just a scarier place now. But Conway is still a wonderful, quintessentially Southern town.
That it is, absolutely.
And there are a lot of things that are even better now than it was when I was a kid. So I love that little town.
Have you remained in Conway throughout, Liz? You left for a while.
No. Well, I graduated from high school. Sure. Yeah. I graduated from high school and went to Columbia College in Columbia. It was a women's school. And then went to Carolina for grad school.
Right.
Taught a couple of years in Columbia. Finished my graduate degree. Went to Furman for a few years. I really liked education. I liked being with kids and studying and working together. And I was a guidance counselor and English teacher in high school, and then I was a coordinator of residence life at Furman, and I loved being with the kids. That's in Greenville.
Right.
And then right down the hall from my apartment, in the women's dorm, my first year there was a kid from Nashville named Amy Grant.
Amy Grant.
We got to be great friends,
know.
and I was
Yeah.
back and forth to Nashville with her and visiting with her and her family, and then eventually I moved there.
You moved to Nashville. Wow.
To work in the contemporary Christian music business.
Right.
Which was...
Had she already gotten into it at that
She
point?
was.
Yeah.
She had just recorded her first album when she came to Furman. She recorded it starting at 16. And she was just right on the edge of being huge. And by the end of her second year, she was. And then she transferred to Vandy because that's where home and work was.
Right.
And she was flying out every weekend from Furman, which is not an easy school. And weekend is usually when the kids caught up on their studies. So it was tough for her. So
she was no exception to that.
No.
Yeah.
So when I moved there, when she left, I thought, I'm going to do this too. And so I moved to try to promote the music that I had just fallen in love with, because it combined my love for music with my Christian belief. And I thought, what a great way to spread the message. What great, clean, wonderful music, but nobody's heard about it in South Carolina. It seems there were no contemporary Christian radio stations, and other than the college campuses, you just didn't hear it very much. So I thought, I'm going to go be a part of this, and I want to help this to spread. I want the folks back in Conway to hear this music on the radio.
So you went to Nashville to help, obviously, make that happen.
Yeah.
And helped get folks down here in the Palmetto State obviously interested in it, even from Nashville.
I tried.
Right.
And then when I moved back home, I was there for 10 years.
Right.
I was very plugged into my church, to my community. I had a great group of friends, and I thought I'd be there forever. Got involved in mission work while I was there. Did a number of trips to Haiti. I went to China to smuggle Bibles. I took a year off.
You smuggled Bibles?
I was a smuggler.
Into China?
I broke the law.
My Lord,
did.
yeah. That's your one instance where you'll happily claim I broke the law, yeah.
I did.
Right.
And at that time, you could have churches, Christian churches in China, but they were state-run churches, and you had to get on a list. They took a list of who became a member and who went. And they were right out of that horrible cultural revolution of the 60s and late 60s, and nobody wanted to be on a government list, because if the leaders changed, the new leader might say, I don't like those Christians, get me those lists and let's put them all in jail. Because that's what they had done to, or worse. And so home churches, house churches were growing up, and while they could have Bibles and buy Bibles, they would cost a year's salary, and Chinese people could hardly afford it. So there was a real thriving, and there may still be, but there was a real thriving underground taking in the Bibles,
and these
smuggling
are Bibles
activity.
Written in Chinese.
They were in Mandarin Chinese.
In Mandarin.
Yeah. Because the one good thing that came out of the revolution was, instead of 1,000 different dialects, every little area and village having its own dialect, the dictator said, we will have one national language, and it will be Mandarin. So they all still had their dialects, but they all had to learn Mandarin in the schools.